Welcome to Keep It Electric with Tremayne Person, episode 54. As always, we're diving deep into all things Seattle Mariners. At the time of this recording, Tuesday, September 17th, the Mariners are still holding strong in second place in the AL West, currently 4 games behind the Houston Astros, and now just 2 games out of the wild card. It's been quite a wild ride lately. The Mariners are still staying hot. They've won 7 out of their last 10 games. It's definitely still a tight race as we head into the final stretch of the season. In today's episode, we've got kind of a bit to unpack. We're going to take a close look at the recent series against the Texas Rangers. Plenty of drama and intense moments there, especially that incident between Randy Arozarena and Jonah Heim. If you missed that, don't worry. We'll be breaking it all down and giving you the full story. And then, of course, we've got a huge series coming up against the New York Yankees. This is a pivotal moment for the Mariners with potential postseason implications hanging in the balance. Can they keep their momentum going and close the gap in the wild card race? We'll be discussing all of that and more in today's episode. Let's get into it. Seby Zavala was DFA'd this past week, which opened up a roster spot for Emerson Hancock to make his start on Friday. This was kind of news to me because I thought that maybe they were going to hold on to Seby on the main roster and have Hancock pitch to him. But the move isn't really exactly shocking, as Zavala has struggled to find consistency at the plate during his entire time with the Mariners thus far. His contributions behind the dish, they're solid because he's a great defensive catcher, but with the team needing more production offensively, it just makes sense that the front office would make a decision like this and have Hancock pitch to Raleigh. Now, Zavala did clear waivers, which I think we kind of all assumed that he would. That's not really uncommon, especially for a guy like him who's really just a defensive catcher. His time with the Mariners isn't necessarily over, but for now, he's just going to hang out in Tacoma. The focus really does shift to Hancock and what he can do while Castillo's out. He's shown flashes of being MLB ready. I think I said in my last podcast, I think he is MLB ready. His start on Friday, that was a really important one for the Mariners, especially facing off against DeGrom, not just because the immediate need for quality innings, but because he also represents a part of the future for this pitching staff. The Mariners have a wealth of young arms. It'll be interesting to see how Hancock continues to develop and whether he can carve out a permanent spot on this roster moving forward. Zavala, he's going to, hang out in Tacoma. He's likely going to continue working on his game. If there's an injury or a need arises later in the season, we could very well see him back in the Mariners uniform before the end of the year, but don't count on it. The past couple seasons, the Seattle Mariners have not shied away from drama, and this series against the Rangers was really no exception. True to form, the Mariners kept the tensions high, and if you were watching, you'd probably notice something pretty wild. 3 out of the 4 games in this series ended with the exact same scoreline, 5-4. That's right, Thursday, Friday, and Saturday all saw the final score of 5-4, each game coming down to just a single run. Talk about keeping the fans on edge of their seats. The Mariners are notorious for creating these high-pressure situations with one-run games, and this series was the perfect example of how tight the margins are for the Seattle Mariners and their baseball games. So breaking down Friday night a little bit, we saw a solid performance from Emerson Hancock. It was a tough matchup for him considering the Rangers had the much-anticipated return of Jacob deGrom on the same night. Hancock really held his own, pitching 5 innings, scattering 6 hits, giving up 3 earned runs, and recording 5 strikeouts. It wasn't a flashy outing, but we're used to seeing Emerson Hancock not be kind of flashy. This was kind of one of the gritty performances that keeps your team in the game. So unfortunately for Hancock, his effort resulted in a no decision, but it's worth noting that he kept the Mariners within striking distance against one of the league's best offensive hitting teams. Now, DeGrom, he made his first start since April 28th, 2023. He was clearly on a pitch count, but he looked really sharp. In just 3 2/3, he threw 61 pitches, struck out 4, didn't allow a single run. The Mariners really couldn't touch him. The upside for this game was that DeGrom's early exit meant that they got to face the Rangers bullpen for the remainder of the game, and that's where things kind of got interesting. So we fast forward here to the bottom of the 8th inning, and that's when Julio Rodriguez stepped up in a big way. He crushed a huge homer that gave the Mariners a 5-4 lead, which ended up being the game winner. It was the kind of clutch moment that we've all been kind of waiting for with Julio, especially when the Mariners needed the most. The month of August, he's been just a really hot batter. And he really just helped the Mariners get a crucial win, especially after dropping the first game of that series, also by the margin of 5-4. Now, it's games like this that make September baseball really thrilling and also so nerve-wracking because the Mariners are in the thick of a playoff chase. Each game, each run, it feels like it could be the difference between playing in October or watching from home and switching to football. So the good news is, like, despite the dramatics and the tight scorelines, the Mariners showed resilience in this series. They found a way to win 3 out of those 4 games, and that's what matters the most down the stretch. So we're going to look ahead. The Mariners will need to keep that same fight as they continue battling for position in the AL West. We're going to see if Emerson Hancock's going to stay on the mound. I believe he might actually just end up being in the rotation for the remainder of the season. And if he is, I think we should feel pretty optimistic as we head into the final weeks. So one of the major talking points from this series, and it's I think it's kind of become a viral moment. It was a pretty intense moment that unfolded between Rangers catcher Jonah Heim and Mariners outfielder Randy Arozarena. This is one of those incidents where there's just so much to unpack, and it really shifted the energy on the back nine of that game this past Sunday. So let's dive into that. First off, when the Mariners acquired Randy Arozarena, I remember saying we just added another 2020 player to this lineup. And for those who might not know, that's a rare combination, power and speed in a single player. It's not often that the Mariners have multiple guys who can hit 20 home runs and steal 20 bases in the same season. Julio Rodriguez is already that guy, and to add Randy alongside him is a huge deal for the offense, so I was pumped when we acquired him. But as the seasons progressed, Randy struggled to get that power going, especially at T-Mobile Park, and the question started to loom, could he keep the streak alive? He's already done it 3 years in a row, and if he hits that 2020 mark this season, he'll join some pretty elite company. To give you an idea, the only active player with 4 consecutive 2020 seasons right now is Jose Ramirez of the Cleveland Guardians. So you can imagine the importance of hitting that 20th home run for Randy, especially with time running out in the season. And it's definitely a mark that he's been looking for, and he kind of said that after the game. So let me set the stage for you. It's the bottom of the 7th inning this past Sunday, and Randy steps up to the plate. It was a tense moment because the Mariners were kind of looking to really break the game open there. And Randy knew he was close to that milestone as well. It's very obvious. So on the first 3 pitches of the at-bat, Randy steps out of the box. And I believe all 3 pitches were sliders low and away outside of the zone. So it's 3-0. He's been stepping out of the box on every pitch so far. And the pitcher's probably trying to avoid walking him. Maybe even thinking to himself that Randy is going to step out of the batter's box again and just give him a strike. So the pitcher throws a 92-mile-an-hour fastball, low, middle in. And Randy doesn't step out. He doesn't hesitate. He absolutely jumps on that pitch. He obliterates the ball off the second deck above the T-Mobile pen. I mean, it was crush, an absolute no-doubter. And Randy knew exactly what that home run meant. It was his 20th homer of the year, and you could tell that he was savoring the moment. And when you play it back, it actually becomes even funnier to me. So, like, he takes a long pause to admire his work. A huge bat flip, and he celebrates towards his teammates in the dugout before he even gets to first base. It was completely electric, and I laughed because I'm a Mariners fan. I don't know if I would be laughing if I was a Rangers fan, because after all that, Randy didn't even rush it. He took a solid 33-second trot around the bases, and to put that in perspective, the average home run trot is under 30 seconds. So the longest home run trot this season was 37 seconds by Juan Soto. And Juan Soto isn't really known for his speed. Not saying that you need to have speed around the bases, but Juan Soto, he's just not really a fast guy. So he's not known for his speed like Randy is. So you can just tell how much Randy was really soaking in the moment. He finally touches home plate, and it was clear that Jonah Heim, the Rangers catcher, wasn't happy with the celebration or Randy's antics inside and rather really outside of the box. Heim stepped towards Randy and just started yelling, clearly taking exception to the bat flip and the extended trot. The umpire quickly stepped in to calm things down before they escalated, but you could really feel that there was some tension there. This leads up to the very next moment, which happened in the very next inning in the bottom of the 8th. Randy comes back up to the plate, this time facing the same pitcher. I think his name was Garabito, but same pitcher he homered off of in the previous inning. On a 2-2 count, he gets plunked with a 93-mile-an-hour fastball right inside. So, I mean, when you think about it, 2-2 usually isn't a count where you expect the pitcher to throw at a guy. But given what had happened earlier, it's really not that hard to think that some kind of message was just being sent there. I don't think they were. I'm not accusing them of it, but it's hard to not think that they were sending a message. The Mariners dugout felt it too. So you could see J.P. Crawford and Julio Rodriguez standing at the top of the dugout, ready just in case things got out of hand. It's one of those moments where it really felt like the whole stadium was kind of just waiting for it. But that's where Randy decided to show some class. So instead of retaliating or escalating the situation, he motioned back to his teammates that everything was fine. He didn't want things to spiral out of control, and he kept the situation from really boiling over. Meanwhile, Heim was still pissed off. You could tell that. He was arguing that it wasn't intentional. You could see the emotions really running high, really mainly on the Rangers side. Cooler heads like ultimately prevailed here, but that whole sequence from the home run to the hit by pitch added a whole layer of intensity to a series that I think was probably, you could say, was really dramatic already. Now, what makes this even more interesting are some of the comments that were made. So Mitch Garver, I actually really liked his take out of all the comments that he made after the game. In an interview, he kind of alluded to the fact that the Rangers are settling into the feeling of the weight of their season slipping away. So they're not in the same position as the Mariners, who are fighting for a playoff spot. The Rangers won the World Series just last year, and now a season later, they're trying to keep their season afloat, which it's gone. Let's just be real, it's gone. Garver did mention how coming off of a championship high, emotions are probably running a little hotter, and it's understandable because, again, just a year ago, the Rangers were playing meaningful baseball in September, and now this is they're in a much different place this year. So it's easy to see how tensions could have flared in this moment and in the series. The Mariners, they're fighting for their playoffs lives, and the Rangers are dealing with the pressure of trying to salvage anything out of the season. So the combination of the high stakes and the emotions, that's a recipe for moments like the ones that we saw between Heim and Arozarena. And it's a reminder that in baseball, like, the mental aspect of the game is just as important as the physical. When you're dealing with frustration and the pressure to perform, things can escalate pretty quickly, and that's exactly what happened in this series. On to some good news and some not so good news. First, the good news. The Astros dropped the first game of their 3-game set against the Padres, which is exactly what we needed to close the gap in the AL West standings. Now for the not so good news, we got a tough 3-game series ahead of us, and it's not going to be an easy one. The red hot New York Yankees are coming to town, and this is a team that has been absolutely rolling. Let's talk about the matchups. For the Mariners, we got Brian Wu, Bryce Miller, and Logan Gilbert slated to start. Solid arms, no doubt. We already know the story behind them. On the other side, the Yankees are countering with Luis Gil, Nestor Cortez, and Clark Schmidt. And Schmidt has been on a tear since he got back into the rotation for the Yankees. He's found his groove. With that in mind, runs are really going to be at a premium in this series, and it's really going to come down to whose pitching is going to hold up best. Now, the silver lining here is this series is happening in Seattle, and that's where the Mariners have really excelled this season. Our win-loss record at home has been in our favor, and we'll need every bit of that home field advantage because let's not forget the Yankees they have some serious firepower in that lineup. We all remember their last visit here. It wasn't pretty. They completely wiped the floor with us, and the Mariners are going to be looking for some redemption this time around. Now, of course, when you talk about the Yankees, you can't ignore the big names. You got Aaron Judge, Juan Soto, Jazz Chisholm Jr. They're all dangerous at the plate. And to be honest, I don't even think that T-Mobile Park is big enough to contain the power that all three of them have individually. All three of them have showcased all-world ability to go deep no matter the ballpark. So our pitching staff is going to have their hands full. The real question is, how long can Wu, Miller, Gilbert, and the bullpen keep those guys at bay? And more importantly, if the Yankees start putting up runs in a hurry, will our offense be able to counter? Will they be able to keep pace? So that's really where the suspense lies in this series. We've seen the Mariners offense get hot at times. They've been hot lately, but can they sustain it against a team like the Yankees who can really score runs in bunches? They had a couple comeback victories recently, and most of those comeback victories have really just been one of those big three, just homering, hitting a 3 or 4 run, or 3 home run, a 3-run home run or a grand slam. So our hitters are really going to need to bring their A game, especially if the Yankees come out swinging early. This series could end up being a real test of resilience for the Mariners, and we'll see if they can rise to the occasion. So that's going to be a tough, hard fought series, but if the Mariners can capitalize on any Astros missteps and find a way to take a couple games from the Yankees, it could be a massive boost as we head into the final stretch of the season. As we look again for the other potential routes for the Mariners to make it to the postseason, there's another key development to keep an eye on: the Minnesota Twins. They've been really struggling down the stretch. They are leaving the door open for someone else to sneak in. The Twins have dropped some critical games recently, and if their slide continues, the Mariners have a chance to capitalize and jump into the wild card or jump into that last wild card slot. But there is more happening there. The Detroit Tigers are playing some incredibly good baseball right now. It's by far the best baseball they've played all season, and they're not even just playing spoiler, they're becoming an actual threat for that third spot in the wild card. What's wild is like the Tigers were written off earlier this year. The Mariners were actually made fun of by the way they were losing to the Tigers, but now like the Tigers have the second best record since the All-Star break. So they're now making a serious play. They're a game and a half out. The Mariners are 2 games out. So they're just 2 games out of the wild card. That means the door is very much open for them to find another way into the playoffs, just in case they cannot get the AL West Division title. If that slips out of their reach, they have a chance. They still have a chance to get into the wild card. So I think while everyone is watching the crucial Mariners and Yankees series, I think it's really important to keep an eye on what's happening with the Twins and the Tigers. Both teams are facing tough opponents of their own. The Tigers are facing off against the Royals right now. And the Twins, I actually can't remember who the Twins are facing. I think they might be facing the Braves. No, they're not facing the Braves. Who are the Twins facing? I don't know. But just whoever they're facing, take a look. The Mariners could find an opportunity to sneak in to the back door of the wild card. So we're heading to the series against the Yankees. The Mariners' postseason hopes are still very much alive. Keep an eye on those scores while you're watching the Mariners take on the Yankees. This could be a turning point, a really big turning point in the next 3 days. That's going to do it for today's episode. We've got a lot to keep track over for the next couple of days. Stay tuned. Keep rooting for the Mariners. Will they secure their spot in the playoffs? Can they maintain their momentum against a tough Yankees squad? And will the Tigers and Twins continue to shift the landscape for the wild card? Only time will tell. Until then, keep it electric. Go Mariners. The Guardians, damn it. The Twins are playing the Guardians.